Having played over 100 hours in the base game of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I thought maybe it was time I shared my overall thoughts on the latest game in a franchise I love. Warning, major spoilers ahead. Also guys, this is just my opinion, and that doesn't mean that the comment section needs to turn into a cesspool of insults. Keep it civil, but I would love to hear your opinions as well. So here is my critique of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Let's start with the story. I played as female Eivor, as she is canon, so I will refer to her as she throughout the video. We follow Eivor, a Viking from the 800s who, after being fed up with the constant fighting in Norway, decides to move to England with her adopted brother Sigurd. They create the settlement of Ravensthorpe and begin to create alliances with other kingdoms of England. The overall story of Valhalla is great, however it is filled with a lot of filler, and frankly, it's just way too long. The pacing is all over the place thanks to no set path for Eivor to take. She can take a trip to secure alliances from a few different kingdoms at once. All must be completed, but the order is not set in stone. This is shown to be a major problem when your brother is captured. Instead of going to rescue him straight away, you can and are even encouraged to go form other alliances before mounting an attack to save him. Not to mention some of these kingdoms' missions are just filler that serve no real purpose or have an impact on the overall story, and I think should have been cut to reduce the game's length and to fix the pacing. As I said, the game is simply too long. We haven't even talked about the assassins in this game. Eivor is not and never becomes an assassin. This is understandable from a character perspective as she is a Viking. Vikings are generally portrayed as loud, flashy, and brutal in their killings. It doesn't make much sense to follow the creed. Vikings don't hide in plain sight. They run right through your town, sacking and burning whatever they find. So I ask, why does this game have an Assassin's Creed title? Simply put, my friends, to make money. Valhalla sold more in its first week than any other AC game, so it seems to be working. So within the story context, it makes sense that Eivor would not become an assassin. Call me crazy, my friends, but I would actually like to play as an assassin in my Assassin's Creed game. Very strange. So with all that said, you do track down a big tree of the Order of Ancients members. You do this as a Viking for your settlement, not as an assassin for your brotherhood. Your goals just happen to align with Hytham, an assassin, or hidden one in this game, who sets up a bureau in your settlement near the beginning of the game. Eivor even says she will not join as she does not believe they fight for quite the same cause.
Was this your ultimate goal, Hytham? A trial by fire? It is a kind offer, but I do not believe we fight for quite the same cause. Your creed demands that you keep your triumphs hidden. I prefer my glory to be in plain view for all to see.
Basim, another assassin, also accompanies you on some of the missions. He turns out to be a bit more than an assassin, but we will talk about that a bit later. The Order of the Ancient storyline has a huge payout in the end once you realize King Alfred was head of the Order, and that he despised it and used Eivor to kill them, and all indirectly starting the Templar Order. This is a high point for the story that I really enjoyed, with a shock and twist I think was really well written. The only problem with this was ticking off names off a list. Killing targets who have no development. Just a name on a list I was told was bad. I would rather have a few targets but have them fleshed out and give me a reason to kill them. Some targets just look like regular NPCs doing normal things, and the only reason you have for killing them is a few clues you found around and because they are on your list. You do get a bit of character development as they die in the confession scenes, but this is far too late. Killing Roger George Jerome over here just because he has a target over his head really doesn't do anything for me. One last thing is the codex page from Bayek that Reda has at the shop. I absolutely loved this. It was well worth the effort to gain. Bayek needs a sequel and Aya needs her own full game. Just saying, Ubisoft. I wish Ubisoft would just commit to a female lead instead of choosing non-canon genders, etc. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. That is for another video. So, I'm not sure if this is controversial or not, but I thought Eivor was a compelling character whose motivations seem legit and well thought through. Not to say there aren't points where I thought, why is Eivor reuniting a king and his long-lost lover? As stated earlier, there are a few arcs which just don't need to be in the game. I liked Eivor's voice acting and also enjoyed playing as male Odin, as I chose to let the Animus choose my gender, and it changes when we do the dream sequences. Now, antagonists in Valhalla are a strange bunch. There is no overall antagonist that we are fighting through the game. While we don't know Basim is the ultimate villain until the end of the game, he is a strong character who also has justifiable actions and motives, being the reincarnation of Loki and Eivor being found to be Odin reincarnated. Another great antagonist from Valhalla is Folke. She appears first as an ally, turning on Eivor and Sigurd in the most extreme way, a good twist and a story point that pushes the narrative along quite a bit. The ending to the game is pretty damn good, to be honest, guys. Eivor goes to the Isu Vault and enters the simulated Valhalla, opting to leave it as it wasn't anything like she had wanted from an afterlife. As Sigurd and Eivor leave the simulation, we discover Basim has been tracking us here and is indeed the reincarnation of Loki, seeking revenge on Odin for killing his son. We have a battle and Eivor is eventually victorious, returning to England to lead her clan. You then complete a few arcs to finish out Eivor's England saga. Something I think was done very well in Valhalla was the modern day story. As someone who has always enjoyed this part of AC, and I think it's a vital part of the story of these games, I enjoyed it greatly. Having a fully developed modern day helps tie it all together. Bringing Sean and Rebecca back was also a fantastic choice. I found myself voluntarily getting out of the Animus to read Sean's notes on the wall, or to check out new things on the laptop, where I learned really cool things about the ancient assassins and also modern day details. Learning Hatham Kenway may have been named by Edward after Hytham from the current ancient story gave me a connection from the older games I really loved to the new characters of ancient England. The writers made me invest in a character like Layla that I had previously not cared much about, as the two previous games hadn't done enough to flesh her character out. Bringing back the Doomsday plot also added huge weight to my actions inside the Animus and out. Linking back to my favourite games and characters of the series is always something I will appreciate. The game talks about Desmond and his sacrifice and the end of the world he helped prevent. But we discover in the game Desmond only delayed the end of the world and that Layla would need to succeed to stop the world ending. The modern day story linking into the ancient storyline was so well done apart from this Abstergo symbol in the Isu Vault 77,000 years before Abstergo was a thing. Whoever put that there, I apologize, but come on, man. Come on! I can forgive things like this, but it's still pretty funny. Hunting down the hidden truth fragments throughout England and Norway is an optional part of Valhalla, but is one of the most rewarding side activities in AC games, up there with the original truth from AC Brotherhood. Trying to figure out the story with the small snippets of the final scene once you collect them all. Hearing what appears to be Basim or Loki speaking to a character we can't quite figure out until we realize it's Alethea, and Loki making plans. The final ending as Layla enters the Isu Vault and joins the Reader in the Grey. We get the reveal of Desmond being the Reader. Being in the Grey for 8 years, reading the possibilities of the future and trying to find solutions to save the world. Layla shows him other possibilities he had not yet considered and decides to also sacrifice herself to stay and help Desmond. The Staff of Hermes Trismegistus, yep, got it, fantastic, falling from her hand and landing in the hands of Basim 1,200 years after Eivor killed him here in the Yggdrasil chamber. Coming back to life, his plans that we found out from the hidden truth coming to fruition and returning awkwardly to Sean and Rebecca and requesting to talk to their mentor, and then entering the Animus himself to live out Eivor's memories. Now onto the world the game is set in. Much like the length of the main story, it's simply too big. I do in fact love the feeling of riding through England. Ubisoft have pretty much nailed these massive open worlds now, but I just think I'd rather a scaled down version of the game, with some of the regions removed along with their arcs. Shrink the world down and shrink the story. The world itself is, however, beautiful. The different regions feel different and varied without ever feeling like they are a completely different country. You head north and the snowy mountains meet you, or heading south you will find it become much more green and luscious. There is no shortage of things to do in this world. A lot of the side content are short but interesting things to do. All you need to do is head to one of the dots on the minimap and complete a mini quest. Heading to famous locations and landmarks has always been a big part of the Assassin's Creed experience. and stumbling upon Stonehenge or seeing Hadrian's Wall is an absolutely amazing feeling. I've always loved the feeling of experiencing history firsthand, even if it's skewed a little to fit the AC narratives. A quick shout out to the American arc, which I found to be very intriguing, and I am a sucker for fan service, as we see where the apple came from, that Connor's village is the guardians of in AC3, and can even visit the door of the vault. So last up in the story category, I'd like to briefly discuss choices, conversation choices. Now, I am not a big fan of choices in my Assassin's Creed games. Not only do they make no sense, as we are living through a real person's memory, so making choices is not up to us. They were already made in history. I would rather have a set story and a set character. I am not Eivor. If anything, I'm Layla. Layla doesn't make these decisions. Eivor does, and has already made them 1200 years before Layla ever sat in Animus. Not only do they make no sense, but they seem to have very little impact on the story. They are set up as though they will have a huge impact, but alter very little in the big scheme of things. This example is in the Siege of Paris DLC, but is a great example of what happens in the rest of the normal game. You have two choices: give Charles his son back, or don't. If you choose not to give the boy over, Charles gets angry and says this isn't over, and his son stays with the Queen. If you do give the boy over, he runs away after a day and returns to the Queen anyway. Conversations with other characters change a little, but no big impact to the story. Either way, the boy ends up with the Queen hiding from his father. Your choices don't ultimately matter, especially with history that's already set in stone. It is an illusion of choice dressed up to feel like you're making a big choice, when in reality, it doesn't matter. Just a quick plug for my second channel. If you want to see me play all of the Assassin's Creed games, you can find a few of them on this channel and most of them over on the second channel. All will be linked in the description. So check that out. That would make my day. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are on to the gameplay features. Let's start with combat. Combat in AC Valhalla is a weird one. It is an improvement over Odyssey, but honestly, that's not saying much. It looks like Eivor is strong and dealing heavy blows, but feels clunky at the same time. Time to kill is also still too high. Not as bad as Odyssey, where the enemies were endless damage sponges, but I would still prefer a more one and done kind of style. I would expect an axe getting lodged in your torso would pretty much do you in, but some of these enemies take a lot more than that. The abilities are an okay part of the game. There's only a few of them that really feel worth using, so I tended to stick with the same ones once I unlocked them. They feel a little bit silly at times, like where did Eivor pull all these axes from, and why can she jump that high? Is she Michael Jordan reincarnated too? Or in this case, pre-incarnated? Is that a word? Honestly, if it's not, it should be. That is a great word. I'd much rather just have really cool looking, realistic moves she could pull out of the bag occasionally. I did appreciate having a variety of weapons to use, however, and different builds and combinations so the combat didn't get stale too quickly. Although it still did because of the duration of the game and how many times you enter combat due to a clunky stealth system. I'll talk more in depth about gear and loot later in the video. But speaking of stealth, let's go more in depth. Valhalla marketed itself on bringing back social stealth. Apart from a few times, you just can't use it due to the nature of 800s England and the mission structures of the game. When you did use it, it no longer felt natural, it felt tacked on and just plain silly. It felt like a shell of itself. I think I blended with monks maybe once and clicked a button once or twice to make bread or something stupid. It was basically unusable. A lot of missions are not in towns, and the towns you do visit are spread out and stealth feels awkward, and the world just wasn't designed with stealth in mind. Like I said, it's a tacked on feature they tried to have here because it's meant to be an Assassin's Creed game. And story-wise, it makes no sense. Eivor would never sneak around. She would charge in and announce herself, killing anyone who tried to stop her. Now, she might as well have done that because the detection system is just broken. It simply doesn't work. There's no stages to detection. You make one tiny mistake, or in some cases no mistakes, and some telepathic X-ray god guard sees you through the wall or something. There's no yellow bar climbing to red where you may be detected like in other games. You're just sighted and instantly the entire world knows where you are. Even Ragnar, who's been dead a while, knows where you are. An entire outpost will come running to your location and you have basically no chance to ever enter back into stealth. So on goes the long and clunky combat where you have to kill everyone to get on with your mission. AC Valhalla fills none of the tick boxes for stealth in my opinion, so I'm going to have to give this a big red X. Sorry, but the mark was just missed completely. Parkour, a pillar of Assassin's Creed. It's, shall we say, less than ideal in Valhalla. I wasn't expecting much, to be honest. The other entries in this new type of Assassin's Creed game have done little to make parkour fun or engaging, and Valhalla is no different. Firstly, you want to climb something, you just run at a wall and Eivor will climb it. There's no skill, no cool wall ejects to learn, no skill expression whatsoever. Eivor is just Odin, Michael Jordan, and a world-class climbing expert. As you can tell, I didn't know any famous climbers. I apologize. The world really isn't set up for parkour either. England is mostly wild countryside with small villages and settlements, with a few cities. Even the cities are too spread out to really utilize any kind of parkour. I realize this change in parkour has been done to cater to a wider audience, but it punishes long-time fans of the series who enjoy these things. When you make Eivor able to climb anything with ease, you remove a huge part of the game and it makes it very boring. I know it can be frustrating to learn the older games, but climbing is now just a way to get from A to B and nothing more. Loot in this game is honestly pretty decent. Admittedly, some of the weapons feel completely useless while others feel utterly overpowered with the right combination. They do for the most part feel unique. I appreciate the toned down loot tables and no randomization. I hate to keep talking about Odyssey, but the loot was completely random and you'd be swapping it out every 5 minutes for a minor stat increase you couldn't even feel. I much prefer Valhalla's loot system with every chest having a certain weapon or armor piece in it, the same for everyone who plays the game. This means you are holding onto your weapons and armor for longer, and any weapon can be used at any stage of the game thanks to the upgrading that can be done. I don't really like the way that upgrading is implemented, however. You have to go to Gunner in your settlement to upgrade its looks and open up more upgrade slots, and then you can increase its stats at any time in the menu if you have the right resources. I'd rather they would have just made it simpler, just have one way to upgrade the loot. Armor sets are great in this game, they all look unique. I didn't find myself worrying too much about what the stats or perks they had, and focus more on looks and the lore of them. For instance, I just wanted to wear the Mentor's set, as I am an AC nerd and always want to play the AC fantasy. Now, one last thing we have to talk about for loot is the runes. Honestly, I hate rune systems, at least when they are done like this. Completely useless runes you can hardly feel for minor stat increases. It all seems like it's just there to make it more RPG-y, and it's just rubbish. I never had a fun time searching through a menu to find a rune I wanted to use. If it's going to be a rune system, I'd again have it toned down to maybe 10 very impactful runes instead of the silly amount you can collect that do very little. The gameplay loop was fun for about 30 to 40 hours before I really started to feel fatigued by the constant combat and lack of substance in things such as stealth and parkour. The story was really the only thing pulling me along, and at some points where the story became silly or seemed like filler, I really had to push to keep going, hoping the payoff would be worth it. I really do like that I didn't need to do any side content to keep going on with the main story. However, I feel some of the things in the main story really did feel like side content. Okay, we're here. This monstrosity. This skill tree. I liked this skill tree for all of about 3 hours, then I found it mostly meaningless. Much like the runes, these tiny stat increases mean nothing to me. I can't feel them. I found myself saving up skill points just to get them all out of the way in bigger pieces so I didn't waste so much time searching through this stupid tree to find something meaningful that I wanted to progress towards. Was this tree meant to signify how convoluted the story was? Because if so, you did it, Ubisoft. The only thing that made any difference in this tree was the bigger upgrades / powers or abilities. The rest of the tiny stat increases I'm sure add up over time, but I wasn't even looking into what they were. I just was using them to get to the upgrade I wanted. No thought went into it at all. I just took the shortest path to an ability I wanted. Trying to find an ability you want is also very hard, as they are all over the place. You have to scan and read all over the place, and once you have read everything, you forget where the skill you wanted was. Leveling, my friends. Why, oh why? Level 400? I honestly do not see the appeal of reaching level 400. Like, I don't think levels have a place in AC anyway, but if you're going to do it, maybe limit to 10 or something like Syndicate. We don't need big numbers flashing everywhere. I just want to be an assassin, not a level 400 Viking. This isn't World of Warcraft. Honestly, I've never played that game, so this reference could be completely way off. Anyway, Ezio was never a level 50 assassin. He was just a novice assassin who later became mentor to the Brotherhood. Never was it muttered by anyone that he was any kind of level. It makes no sense to be a level in AC games, But if it's here to stay, can we make it less ridiculous? All in all, I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because when it comes to these games, story is king for me. Story is my favourite part, and I think they did a lot of things right with the story. Obviously, as I've said, there was a lot they got wrong, and I believe they could do better. Gameplay could be improved majorly by picking a different setting. Viking and Hidden One really do not match together. Loot is much improved, but some game systems like the skill tree and leveling need to be addressed. I think this game could have been so much more if not for the major problems I addressed in this video, and I hope going forward they will be fixed. I do, however, have absolutely no faith in Ubisoft whatsoever, as they only care about making money, with a store selling Helix credits. Something I have avoided talking about in this video, and will continue to do so. The integrity of AC means nothing to these bigwigs, but they are a company who wants to make money at any cost. And with the recent announcement of AC Infinity, I fear this series is dead forever. But I do hope I am very wrong about this. I hope you enjoyed this video, but let me know what you think down in the comments section, and check the pinned comment for any mistakes I may have made in this video. Let me know if you'd like to see more of this kind of content by hitting that like button, subscribing, and hitting the bell for more gaming content. Also, check out my second channel, like I said, if you want to see me play these games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.